Jasonafex is an artist in the furry fandom known for his NSFW art pieces of a multitude of characters. Given this is how furries get popular from within that fandom, he became very well known within those ranks, and even hosted a series of podcasts on his YouTube channel during the initial claim to fame before shutting it down. His name will become mired with controversies sooner or later as expected from this side of the internet, because let's just say just because he's a good artist, it doesn't mean he's a good person. Shout out to the Patreon members as always, and if you'd like to support the channel you can do so by checking out the link below or in the corner. With that being said, let's jump right into everything, because there's a lot we gotta go over. Jasonafex and his internet presence started sometime in 2010 by posting Team Fortress 2 related content on YouTube, and even made some NSFW fan art of the Power character as well. It would come out that these pieces are actually traced from other artworks, with him responding as such when called out about it in the thread in February 2012, saying that people do it all the time and yada yada yada. This lack of actual art skill despite branding himself as an artist wouldn't stop him however, as he would become popular for making a multitude of furry porn animations starting February 1st, 2012. He would post a shit ton of these animations using other pieces of artwork and would soon become a popular figure in the furry fandom, gaining upwards of 5 million page views on the site for Affinity as of today. As he started to gain money from this hobby, he would start to draw his own artwork and animations. However, it would come out that his girlfriend Kabier was doing the actual drawings themselves, he was just doing the animations in After Effects and posting them on the internet for sweet clout. Granted, the animations did credit the actual artist and whatnot, so while not egregious or anything, the fact he doesn't really do any of the legwork himself is none too surprising when remembering the TF2 tracing. In fact, this recurring theme of not really being the actual worker would become more apparent as time went on, as he would end up launching a dating game sim named Amorous to much fanfare, only for people to find out he wasn't really doing much work at all. Kabier is the one drawing the assets to be used, and he would outsource the coding and whatnot to people who have actual experience making games. Things wouldn't go smoothly however, as people were leaving the project due to poor management, with someone coming out that he did 1,300 hours of work for only $3,000 as he publicly quit on Twitter in January 2018. A handful of emails and Discord DMs will leak out, and while most of it is just a bunch of bitching and moaning about how each of them have shitty lives and stressors and call each other gaslighters and such, an email from Kabier hints that he was actually paid $3.5k for all his work, alongside more complaining about how her life sucks more. Basically, to sum it up, all three of them playing the oppression Olympics, and Rupert was mad Jason was unprofessional with him. To be fair here, Rupert worked for about 2 months total in terms of literal hours, and assuming he spent half the day working and the other half sleeping, it's safe to say he spent 4 months of his time on the project. I don't know much about indie game development, but that's definitely on the smaller side in terms of payment and hours worked. And so this was the first real look at Jason in a light that wasn't people praising him constantly, which got people to look into him further. Now of course alongside Kabir's email was also Jason's email that was leaked, which shows the guy talking down to the former employee in question and just being an overall dick to him because he quit after their petty argument on Discord. It's full of a bunch of needless jabs at the guy for no reason other than to epically own someone after pissing him off in Discord. Given this wasn't part of the initial argument they had, but rather afterwards when both parties were calmed down by this point, it shows that Jason at the very least has this need to make someone feel below him in order to satiate his own ego. The situation overall, to put it bluntly, was on the more tamer side of things, as nothing here was of actual interest save for Jason being a dick, but people take a look at it and start to notice some patterns with the man. This email wasn't the only time Jason was seen arguing over virtually nothing, as before this he was known on going on the site E621 and arguing with anyone who called his work trash. There was even an instance where people started to mass downvote one of his comics because the writing was bad, and he would bitch at the mods to take the downvotes away so much that they straight up deleted it off the site because he was that annoying to deal with, meaning this guy definitely likes to argue a lot. He's even gone on record stating he just scans the site to reply to butthurt people and that it doesn't matter what the haters say because he's popular and successful, again, letting that ego of his slip a bit. Speaking of that comic being deleted off the site, later on in January 2018, he would get into another argument on the site because people said they didn't like his ego, and he would go on a reply and chastise or challenge pretty much anyone that dared say anything remotely bad about him because that's just how he is. And he would do this for a very, very long time. Someone would even bring up the comic itself, in which he would say it was because the viewers were mad it started off as a gay comic but had a straight ending, implying that the gays were the ones mass downvoting it and pretty much going completely conspiracy mode on everyone reading the shitfest go down. After some more posting about how it was actually people being entitled now rather than what he implied before, he and his work would get banned off the site due to this behavior, cementing himself as a locale from within the furry fandom. Now by this point in time, Jason was just known as a really annoying and abrasive person. There was nothing here exactly big to note, he just had an ego and couldn't help but to always try to make himself look better and make the other person look bad or feel wrong about something, and was generally just argumentative and insecure. Going into the month of February, he would continue to argue with random people on Twitter over literal nothings because they called his opinion bad or whatever, again showing that insecurity slipping more and him just having to epically own or prove these people wrong, including posting this debate pyramid that he became known for throwing around. This would go on for a damn long time too, because the dude just couldn't let it go and needed to argue with a bunch of people for making fun of him. What's important to note is that his ego came from barely any of his work per se, as he's only animating other people's art pieces rather than drawing his own, and even with Amorous he was just a manager rather than the actual worker on the project. While one can argue about what is work and what is managing, we're not here to talk about that, as overall, the consensus on the guy was that he was an asshole not really worth your time, but given he was so popular, people would still flock around him because that's generally how things work. Hell, he even got his own toy made on the Bad Dragon website, so his popularity in the furry fandom wasn't anything to scoff at. Of course, just being an asshole doesn't warrant anything interesting to talk about, but don't worry, because Jason here decided to take things a step further in a direction that's not unexpected. Due to Amorous not updating very often, the goals on the game's Patreon page weren't being met in time, which annoyed some people. Eventually, after getting things back together, Jason put a post on his Furfinity telling those that are backing to a certain level to contact him if they still want their character in the game, and any people that don't contact him would lose their spots and he would sell them off. That's right, the people who were paying for their characters to have a chance to be featured in the game now had to directly contact him or lose a spot, basically just trying to screw over those that had been supporting the project despite 8 months of absence for some potential extra cash. At one point, he would straight up deny someone who won a raffle because they didn't want NSFW artwork of their character and would try to pull from the list again, and after seeing this, another artist would step in and do it himself after seeing Jason screwed him over. Jason would then leave another passive-aggressive comment because he got epically owned, and people would immediately catch on to this as this was around the beginning when they started to notice he was a dick. Now these examples are pretty tame and can be dumbed down to just general dumb fuckery, but the next one is where things get weird. On October 2nd, 2015, Jason would put up a GoFundMe link asking for $3K as he needed money to fix up a shack he was living in. He would go on to talk about how he just moved from Australia to Canada to live with Kabier, but that her father was trying to kick them out of the house, so they took refuge in a small shack on a property and needed to fix it up to be livable in, showing pictures of its dilapidated state. It's very clear the shack was in bad shape, so bad that they had no space for beds and as far as I can tell had no bed at all, and so they needed the money, so people would happily supply $3K and then some, as at this point nobody knew he was an asshole just yet. Instead of using the money for the shack, however, he would instead spend it on a purebred Shiba Inu dog 2 months later in December, and for those that know, these dogs run for a hefty price and ain't cheap at all. He would talk about how he and Kabier had their eyes on this dog for a while and that they finally bit the bullet and bought it, even notably saying that they needed to go to the pet store to buy doggy stairs for him to get into bed, despite supposedly having no bed at all to begin with. You can also see how the post was made in 2015 too, meaning that within the span of just 2 months, Jason and Kabier were able to get enough money to not only fix up the shack but also get a very expensive luxurious dog breed. It's pretty obvious what actually happened here. They wanted a Shiba Inu and so made a GoFundMe under the guise of fixing up an old shack, when in reality they just scammed people out of $3K and some change. After furries figured out they just got scammed by both Jasonafex and Kabier, some of them turned on them as no one likes getting scammed, including posting some pretty base stuff about Jason's constant meltdowns and how they misuse their money just to rub salt in the wound cause why the hell not. Now I mentioned earlier how he was arguing with a bunch of people on Twitter over pointless stuff. Well, this would go on for a lot longer because he wouldn't shut up and let it go, and eventually this attitude would rub off into Kabier as she would shit on some random artist and start to brag about how she's so much more successful than them and all that over some petty arguments stemming from who knows what. On April 18, 2018, Kabier would announce they plan on getting married and are now engaged, and just 10 days later would announce another gaming creation despite just finishing up Amorous a few months prior. That game would get cancelled rather quickly as just 2 months later the 3D modeler they hired dropped out of the project due to Jason and Kabier being rude or whatever. And later on at Anthrocon 2018, Jason would get into a pissing match with the horsecock song guy Pepper Coyote over each of them running from a fight or whatever because they're both such strong and tough guys, everybody. Kabier even chimed in trying to get the dude in trouble for drinking alcohol of all things, because two scammers gotta stick by each other after all. Some more leaks of Jason saying racist shit would come out amongst stuff about Nazis and culture war with some unknown force or whatever. And then a leak of the Smash Bros Sonic Fox talking to him about something to do with bad people would come out, which to be honest wasn't the most unexpected thing. Throughout the next few months, he would kinda just be a laughingstock within the furry fandom, with people shit posting about him and his Twitter antics, and him poking the bear constantly by posting shit that would obviously piss him off. Of course, he would get into another argument stemming from the last image we just saw, and the same song and dance would continue for way too long once again because nobody would get over it and just walk away and get off the internet. Jasonafex and Kabier would continue down this path of idiocracy they made for themselves, such as publicly endorsing Shadman of all people, which let me tell you, that dude's worth an entire video himself. Jason would make a handful of posts on his Furfinity page about the furry fandom and stuff that generally doesn't matter other than complaining about how he doesn't like how it currently is, and even at one point tried to brag about how his page is the most popular on the site, with Shadman himself even throwing shade at him. He would also talk about the Cure the Wolf situation and try to turn it into some weird message about woke furries versus fringe furries, basically some really cringe stuff about how the fans hold all the power and stuff that nobody really gives a fuck about. Kabier would also start to talk shit about Sonic Fox on her Gab account, and then straight up go mask off later as she's now gone completely insane and off the rails due to Jason's influence throughout the years. She would then lock the account after realizing the massive mistake she just made, and someone would get into an argument in Twitter DMs with Jason about the post, which can basically be summed up as Jason and Kabier epically owning the libtards by saying edgy stuff because they don't like them and the other dudes flabbergasted at this approach, alongside the expected drawn out argument. Jason would put out another super long-winded post about how she's dipped from Twitter and her life is so much better now and stuff like that, alongside the expected anti-woke rhetoric he's been saying for a while now. Kabier would go mostly quiet after the SonicFox stuff, though she would draw a fan art of PewDiePie after the infamous bridge clip to try and get some positive attention from his fans, and PewDiePie would even react to it in a video of his on his YouTube channel, obviously not knowing anything about her. She would then call out another artist for charging 2.5k for an art piece and argue about it, only for people to quickly remind her she sold the characters from the Amorous game for thousands as well, even having stipulations basically meaning they keep the rights to the character while getting an easy 1k from whatever poor soul bought them. Someone who bought one of the characters even hooked me up with their own DMs with the man, which can be summed up as, oh yeah, you can buy all the art you want, but we'll keep the character. Basically meaning you can't do anything with the actual character and you just wasted a bunch of money. Jason would even get suspended at one point in time after someone sent in a ticket regarding his and Kabier's history, so she would nuke her own page in response to this and Jason would come out and say it was only for 2 weeks so nothing here was definite. In response to this, Jason would move to Newgrounds and delegate his FA and Twitter for just promoting his streams and nothing more, linking his Gab profile for people to follow him on there. Kabier would disable her FA account going into 2019, only to re-enable it just 3 days later. Jason would start up his own company during this time, and then would even reply to one of Kiro's posts about leaving the furry fandom or whatever, saying that he's matured and learned from it, completely forgetting the dude unironically fucks animals. A couple weeks would go by with nothing interesting going on, with the only notable occurrence being Jason himself acknowledging the Kiwi Farms thread that was made on him, how people keep finding all this information on him and Kabier, and another Twitter argument that ended with this amazing one-liner from him. In fact, the man of the hour would finally make an appearance himself on his Kiwi Farms thread on March 21st, 2019, basically just promoting his social pages and talking down to them in the process. He would chat amongst the board going about his typical argumentative way, including his classic logical fallacy approach that he's become very known for to epically own someone and avoid responding to a question. He would go on to argue with the users over all this because what else do you expect him to do? And even posted the infamous pyramid image as hilarity ensued. He would go on to shit up the thread and ignore pressing questions while trying to talk down to everyone while also posting a lot of Jordan Peterson clips for some reason. Jason would even try to boast when someone posted a link to his livestream how he had 5% of their viewers from the site, only for people to find out he had a total of 60 viewers, making it just 3 that actually bothered to watch. He would say, actually it was 500 people total to epically own him, and then people would bring up how that's paltry numbers given he's the self-proclaimed most popular creator on Furfinity. He will make his final post on the site on March 31st trying to promote a video of his again, and since then hasn't knowingly been back. Overall, it was just a fun little waste of time for the users to see one of their favorite lolcows enter their space for some time. After all this, things would die down for the next couple years. Kabier would make an abandoned Instagram page, they would sell off yet another character from Amorous, and they would both get into streaming to a paltry number of people to regain any sort of goodwill from the furry fandom. Jason would post more tone-deaf stuff about Kira the Wolf, Kabier's Patreon would continue to falter, they would get married on September 7, 2019, take a vacation to both Australia and Japan to celebrate, get suspended on Twitch for some unknown reason, and then announce they'd be taking a step back from streaming after not getting the numbers they wanted, hiding it under the guise of working on a new video game, Bare Backstreets, an old project that Jason had been trying to bring back from the dead. People are still trolling Jason though, as a statue of his character would go up for auction and they would mass bid on it to raise the price of upwards of 16k just to piss everyone off, causing him and the website owners to dig through all the troll email accounts to get everything working right again. In February 2020, they had to change up their comic Bareback Valley because Patreon banned humans and furry characters doing it with each other and they needed that sweet money, and he would continue to argue with people on Twitter because of his insecure ego. He would end up creating a website where he posts the artwork Kabier drew. They would hire 2 people to work with him and probably underpay them just like that one guy. And he would get Kabier to reconcile with their father and make him a fan of Jordan Peterson in the process. Jason would start to argue with people on Telegram for whatever reason, arguing with those reminding him he just piggybacks off the work of Kabier and others, and continue to bring up annoyances from another argument because that's all this guy does is argue with people on the internet. Some more Telegram argument would commence because people don't like him and it's funny to see him get angry, including what looked like to be him and another troll setting up for a real life fight because they're both internet tough guys like that. Now Jason has said that he doesn't use Telegram, and there was no hard evidence of telling it was him or not, but it's leaning in the direction that was most likely him based off the constant arguing that he's known for. He and Kabier get a house together, Kabier go at SonicFox again because she's stupid, and SonicFox would easily BTFO her because it's not very hard to do when you made a post like that a couple of years ago. Jason would then try to get SonicFox cancelled on Twitter because he hates him. Kabier would jump in as well after getting destroyed, and basically they just bitch and moan again because that's all they do outside their art business. Kabier would also complain about how she's tried to change even though she was the one who went at SonicFox first, so that was just more butthurt coming from her. Someone would get Jason banned on Twitter, and the very next day he would post about the current state of the furry community on his Furfinity account, basically just maudling about getting banned and trying to hide it behind paragraphs of unrelated stuff. Come the year 2021, he'll make a post in early January asking people to join them in the development of a brand new furry art platform after hating on all the other sites because everyone makes fun of him. 3 months later in April, become known as Project Feldon, with him again asking people to help them create the site throughout the upcoming summer. The website would get delayed due to legal shit according to him. He would get unbanned on Twitter a whole year later as well, and on October 17th, 2021, he would announce that he and Kabier are having a kid. That would end up being short-lived, however, as he would announce it wouldn't make it to birth. And months later, they would be announced as the guests of honor at the Free For All Furry convention. Now, for those more familiar with Jasonafex and Kabier, you may have noticed a couple of notable events not being talked about just yet. I originally wrote them up in the day-by-day fashion that I normally do, but I scrapped that altogether as the flow was stunted and awkward in reading the script. Alongside that, these situations deserve their own little section to discuss about, so without further ado, let's get right into the real story of Jasonafex and Kabier, and more importantly, Jasonafex himself. Jasonafex here has had a string of very concerning posts on what he thinks about bestiality, such as saying it should only be in the context of the comic, making a post on FA thinking about starting up a comic just like that and asking people for their opinions, approving someone to join art of his character like that, and going on some weird spiel about how he doesn't see the issue because the dog has its needs, but also still says it should be illegal, basically a wishy-washy statement trying to jump both sides of the argument for whatever reason. Some people on Twitter would pull up these archives, and Jason would try to shift things and say since it's not a direct link, it's all just Photoshop. Someone would pull up the exact archive link once more, and he would again try to pull off that same talking point despite archives literally being hard evidence of his very own words that he put out. Someone would point this out yet again, and he would then try to shift the narrative to people being a bunch of desperate stalkers because he knew that they epically owned him in a convo and he needed to detour the argument to keep going. It indeed did go on, but it's not of any importance as it was derailed by this point with more pointless arguing after he got caught red-handed saying all that stuff. He's also known for collaborating with Kabier on a comic called Man's Best Friend with Benefits, which you can already tell what it's about based off the title and cover alone, so I don't need to go any further. The comic will become infamous in the furry fandom because, well, it shows exactly that kind of degenerate stuff going down between the two beings. And after years of it being out, Kabier would actually delete it off her Furfinity page sometime in February 2021, showing at the very least the backlash and infamy wasn't worth the hassle anymore. With that being said, these two instances are on the surprisingly tamer side of things of what we're about to go over, because as you've known by now, these two ain't exactly the best people in the world. On December 10, 2017, Kabier came out on Twitter and claimed she had a situation go down at the current house she was living in and that she was going to be taking a break off social media because of it. Jason would reiterate the same thing and imply it was because the roommate was a sociopathic predator, while still keeping it vague as to what exactly went down. Kabier would say that it was sexual assault and that for the past week she's been struggling to deal with it, also stating that she went to the police and gave them a statement on what went down. Jason would reiterate the same thing once again while saying a lot more about how he feels and how it was bad and whatnot as he reminisced on the event a week prior. Where things get weird is that a poster on Kiwi Farms would claim to know these people a lot more than others, and while stating a bunch of things that paint their characters in a strange light, there was one part where he heavily implies that the person they claim to have done something to Kabier didn't actually do anything, and that they were trying to manipulate him into letting them live rent-free after they got annoyed he told them to pay up. People find out this person was known as Bleakley, and for a while the case was pretty much dead on a public scale as it was being handled by the police. For the next year and a half, nothing new would come out about this, until one day on March 3rd, 2019, a brand new Kiwi Farms user would drop a link, and in that link was an audio file named December 10th, a 55-minute recording of what truly went down that day. The clip starts right in the middle of them arguing about something, with Kabier herself especially going off on this guy in a fit of rage, claiming that she'll do whatever it takes to make sure people don't trust him no more.
Hello? I don't want you having anything to do with my friends. I'm gonna tell all my friends how much of a piece of fucking shit you are, and how emotionally abusive you are. I'm fucking destroying you. That's it. You think you had a social circle? Nah, not anymore. You fucked with the wrong person.
She continues to berate Bleakley some more, and we finally get a hint of what this argument stemmed from.
And pull their fucking hearts. Yes, you are.
Paying rent is not being abusive. It could be.
It's not about paying rent. You live here for free.
Well, that's my family.
Well, then you can fucking live with them. How about you tell them the truth?
Yeah, you can live with your family. Tell them that you dropped out of school. Tell them that you're in debt. No, you fucking won't.
You've had multiple chances.
Because you're on a gravy train. And you know that if you tell them, you're fucking out.
Kabier would continue to rage at him and say how he was trying to split up their relationship before going in, how because of his college lie, his uncle and aunt got kicked out of the house before they got there. With then trying to use that lie against Bleakley as Kabier again points out how she plans to manipulate the situation and try to ruin his social life.
You're done. Your friend circle is done.
You've had
because they're all gonna know what you did to us. You better fucking believe they will. And you can tell them all the lies you want to about how we're the abusive ones and we're the monsters, but in the end, they're not gonna believe anything you say. And I bet you I bet you you're recording this conversation just like you did with your aunt and uncle.
They then say it was his fault he was getting yelled at because he kept making jabs at him and tried to say he only cares about himself as they continue to berate him, with Kabier and Jason once again threatening to tell Bleakley's family about how he lied about college as a way to threaten him into submission during this argument.
I'm gonna make sure I find a way to contact your dad so he fucking knows.
Just fucking contact his sister.
Oh.
Speaks English.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna make sure that they know that you're not going to school. Oh, you're fucked, dude. You fucked with the wrong people. You lied to the wrong people.
They finally let him speak, in which we get an understanding for how this argument began, because Bleakley asked the two of them to pay rent while he lived there for free because his parents thought he was going to college and gave him the house.
Paying rent when you're living under a roof is not a bad.
Why are you paying rent?
Why are you paying rent?
You're the same age as me.
That's why.
I'm 20 years old and I have my shit more together than you.
I was paying rent with my dad when I was fucking 17.
The yelling and berating goes on. Kabier ironically calls Bleakley mentally unhinged, and Jason confirms that they're discussing to move out because they had to pay rent now, with Kabier going on an ego trip on Bleakley.
I thought you were the better person, Jason.
Are you fucking going to say that to my face?
Oh.
All I fucking did.
Stupid.
Kate was already looking at options.
I'm 21 years old. That doesn't mean I'm fucking stupid. I'm on a whole nother level than you. Look at me! Look at me, you pussy! I am on a whole nother fucking level than you are.
A lot more pointless arguing about how Bleakley apparently treats people like shit while they continue to bully the man continues. Some stuff about how he doesn't want to work hard for his art career and how he's lazy and worthless. Kabier saying that he's going to become an alcoholic because of this. And generally, they just start trying their hardest to make him feel bad about his life because he had the gall to ask them to pay rent.
And you're probably going to turn into an alcoholic just like her.
Well, that hurts to hear, but...
I don't want to say it.
You fucking deserve it. You deserve to feel like shit because you treat everybody else around you like shit.
No more victim card.
Yeah, no more victim card.
I'm not playing any victim.
Because we licked your ass and we wanted to make you feel good for so long because we honestly fucking believed you.
And you stab us in the fucking back.
Yeah.
I didn't stab it.
Yes, you did.
Jason rages and says that he has nothing. Kabier threatens to use their popularity against him if he posts a recording. Jason says Bleakley's always had an easy life. And Kabier begins to downplay the abuse that Bleakley dealt with when growing up as a way to shame him some more.
The reason I'm an adult and you're not is because I've had adversity in my life.
And
You've had the easiest fucking life in the world and you're doing nothing with it.
I thought that you and I had a similar fucking life, but I was actually abused by my family. Actual abuse. Being hit.
I was hit too.
No, you weren't.
She then goes on to straight up say that he's lying about what he went through as a child, try to say that he used them somehow, then try to use his lie against his family to berate and bully him some more, and Kabier again threatens to ruin his life simply because he asked them for rent.
So you can tell yourself...
You don't know that.
You can be in as much denial...
You can't be my dad. You can't be my dad and saying I'll be kicked out or not.
I'm not saying I'm your dad.
You just told me
I'm gonna make sure your dad knows that you're not going to school. You better fucking believe it.
See, you're bringing up...
Yeah, because if you won't tell him, I sure as hell will.
See?
Because you don't deserve to stay on this fucking gravy train.
Kabier would continue to try and downplay his abuse as a child. They would both call him a bunch of names, and then the actual assault situation would finally be talked about.
Before that...
That's like common sense.
Guys, can you please let me explain?
Okay? Explain your bullshit story.
No, it's not bullshit. This is what happened.
Okay, explain it.
It was this one night, you brought me to the living room with the sofas, and we had a talk, and Jason's like, why don't you touch Kate's boobs? I'm like, okay.
Okay, that was a completely different time. You were in the bed, feeling all sad for yourself.
No,
you said,
I
never had a girlfriend, blah, blah, blah.
No.
We're all in the bed watching a movie.
No.
And said, if you really want the touch of a female, you can try touching a boob once, just so you can say that you've done it. That was the whole thing. It was an invitation to fucking grope my girlfriend.
Guys. And then,
when I'm not there without permission.
Excuse me.
Without even asking her.
Now I realize that was really messed up, but at the time
we felt terrible for you because you're a fucking virgin that has never had the touch of a female in their life. So it's like, hey, do you want to at least feel the sensation of what a tit feels like? You poor sack of shit? That's what it was.
And then it got to a point where it was just kind of like I said, this was wrong, and I admit that, but at the time...
Let me guess, you're going to edit this out of your recording, aren't you?
Please.
Who are you going to show this recording to?
Please,
your therapist?
let me explain.
Because your therapist isn't going to believe anything that you say.
Let me explain.
You know what your therapist is probably gonna say? Oh, this guy's 26.
Guys, shut up.
No.
He's probably gonna say that this guy is 26.
You're not letting me explain.
No, you don't get to.
See?
Because you treat us like shit.
How is this fair?
Fair?
Because
You think this is unfair?
Guys.
You abused us. Yeah, squint your fucking eyes
It's hard to talk to
Poor Bleakley,
hard
the victim.
It's hard to talk to you when you're screaming and saying no, no, no.
You deserve it. You used and abused our kindness.
Guys, please. I heard that enough. Let me
Oh,
explain.
you're exhausted from it.
Yeah,
It's
you're
too
fucking
much.
exhausted,
Because
aren't
you're
ya?
trying to whittle me down and
They've gone to call him a predator as he points out they completely cut him off from speaking and trying to defend himself. And again, threaten to press charges only when they felt comfortable when doing so.
We're done.
Because
You
you're
don't get
making
to
out
make
as if I was
excuses.
some rapist. Okay?
You are.
You're a creepy fucking weirdo who's 26
Excuse
years
me.
old, who is a virgin, and is
Excuse
fucking
me.
predatory.
Excuse
You
me.
are predatory.
It's not fair that you got to imprint this image as a
Could you imagine what would happen if I went to the fucking police about what you did? How much shit you would be in?
Go to call the cops and explain your
Do you want that?
Go
Do you
ahead.
really want that?
Go ahead. If it makes you feel better.
Do you want us
go
to
ahead.
pass you a shovel and you just dig your own grave? But what the fuck are you doing?
Call the cops.
Are you that far gone in denial that
No.
you have done nothing wrong that you seriously want
Please.
her to claim a sexual charge against you? Are you?
I fucking will. I will 100% claim that you sexually assaulted me because you did.
Call the cops.
I'm not gonna call them right now because it's not an emergency. But you better fucking believe that when I'm out of here, I'm gonna press charges.
Bleakley says he'll call the cops instead. They tell him they won't let him do that, and he again goes into explaining the situation while they cut him off and threaten to smear him as a liar as the recording ends.
And you're not seeing
I
it
haven't
bad.
mentioned my aunt and uncle, but you keep on bringing it up.
You know
Let
why?
me explain the situation, okay?
Explain.
Okay. After touching the booby part, I admit, explain it again. Pretty bad, but I didn't know. Because
You
you
didn't
guys
know?
you guys encouraged it. You guys
No,
encouraged
we
it.
didn't.
You guys
We said you could touch my tit once because we felt sorry for your sack of shit ass.
No, you-
And then you fucking climbed into bed with me
No,
while I was naked underneath the sheets. Against my
you
will,
weren't naked.
you groped. I was naked. Who do you think the
weren't
cops are going to trust? The predatory creep or the female that is distressed out of her fucking mind right now?
who's the cops gonna believe? A screaming person or someone talking calmly to them?
Alright, well, at the same time, we'll call your parents. And then we'll get your parents
See,
to
why
talk
are
to
you
the
bringing my
cops.
parents up?
Because you're fucking lying! So if the cops want to know who's honest, we'll just see how honest you are. How about that?
Like the situation with my parents is something I'm dealing with.
No, it's
Something
not.
That's
You're
It
honestly
is
not
part of
dealing
our
with it.
lives because we fucking live here. You trapped us.
Yeah, you better delete that. Yeah, it's not
I'm
working.
calling the cops. I'm calling the cops, guys.
While it's hard to tell what exactly went down between Kabier and Bleakley, when he mentioned that they let him touch her before, it does make some sense why he thought it was an invitation for further things, as they constantly bring up the fact of him being a lonely guy and whatnot as a way to shame him. Again, while we don't know what exactly went down and we'll never know, it's safe to assume nothing came of this given the whole conversation shows how manipulative both Kabier and Jason are, as they constantly bring up the fact they'll tell his parents about his lie if he dares try to step up to him. It became pretty obvious the argument stemmed from Jason and Kabier being upset that Bleakley was asking them to pay rent despite living rent-free himself, and instead of being mature adults, they decide to blackmail and berate him for whatever reason other than pure malice. While one can argue Bleakley was wrong for lying to his parents about being in college and living rent-free himself, that's a personal matter between him and his family, and he didn't deserve to be belittled and yelled at like that simply because the others were jealous of the situation he put himself in. It's interesting listening to this call because Jason has always been seen as the more unhinged person, yet Kabier is easily one of the most verbally abusive people we've seen on the channel, and it makes me wonder if she's already been messed up even before she met Jason. Nonetheless, this leak showed everyone how toxic and manipulative both Jason and Kabier were, and when people finally had some solid evidence of them being pieces of shit, this became one of the bigger pieces of evidence used against them as their slow descent into infamy began. If you remember, this call was leaked only 2 days into Jason's exploration into Kiwi farms, and so the very next day on March 24th, he'd make a post and try to say that Bleakley was the bad guy once again, while also trying to imply he has other skeletons in the closet yet never gives any examples. Another classic attempt at him trying to shift the narrative. At one point, he even admits they were living there for rent-free for 2 months, which again only shows that the argument stemmed from them having to pay rent now and using any dirt they have against him to make him feel bad for daring bring up such a heinous topic. Now, it was said that they also did follow through with the threats to his family and friends, and Jason did supply a screenshot of what looked to be a police report, but it seems that none of this has made its way to the internet, and Bleakley has continued to post his artwork on his Furfinity page to this very day as he moved on from the situation. A few days after the call came out, Kabier made an apology post on our Furfinity page that doesn't directly apologize for the call itself, but only hints at its existence instead, such as saying she's moving on from the past and whatnot. While granted it has been about 5.5 years since that call to date, and I'm willing to bet Kabier has calmed down a bit since then, that hour-long pattern of yelling, manipulation, and blackmail is some of the most insane stuff I've ever listened to, and those rumors of them being manipulative people are certainly not unfounded whatsoever anymore. Now there's still some more stuff going on here, and it comes right back to Jasonafex himself, as there's always the question, how did he and Kabier meet each other? Well, back in early 2012, she used to go by the name Brenji on DeviantArt, and someone would dig up an ID that gave us a date of birth. That'd be November 27, 1996, meaning she was only 15 at the time. A former friend who joined Kiwi Farms to give some insight about that alongside another name she used to go by named Kusaik. They would go on to explain that Kabier was a friendly kid, but that she would complain about her father a lot on Skype and only had a small handful of friends. She would become known in the Lion King fandom for her artwork, and 2 grown women would take special liking to her, which included those 2 drawing concerning NSFW artwork of her and her characters together, with a lot of people questioning what the heck those 2 were doing. Despite this, Kabier became a snob as she was friends with 2 very popular people, and her overall attitude would change as she got with and broke up with a German guy during this period, isolating herself from people. She would eventually meet Jason sometime that year as well, and soon after she would deactivate her DeviantArt account as rumors spread of her now drawing NSFW images, with the user speculating that Jason could have swooped her up as a way to make someone the perfect moneymaker for him under the guise of dating her. While one may doubt this story as it could be any random internet weirdo, another user would chime in one day and give more details to the German guy's story, stating that his name was Seren and that they were in cahoots with each other as early as March 19, 2012, with Kabier being 15 and Seren being either 18 or 19. An artist on Furfinity would post a commission they got together on June 2nd, 2012, just 1 month after Kabier joined the site, and they would find the very first publicly known instance of Jason meeting with him, that being when Jason animated an NSFW image of Kabier and Soren's characters together sometime that very year. Sometime whenever that animation dropped, Soren and Kabier would split, and just a few months later Jason would animate another image, only this time it's his and Kabier's characters doing it together, stating that they both used their own voices for the animation as he posted it on September 29, 2012 to Furfinity. Mind you, Kabier is 15 during this time, so knowing that Jason animated both the images is already extremely suspect alongside getting a minor to voice act in one of them. Kabier would continue to get NSFW artwork on another character, such as this image posted to Jason's Furfinity account just days after she turned 16, and she would even do so on her own accord. She would end up selling it off to someone in May 2013, but not before getting some more art pieces with Jason, including yet another NSFW piece of them together before the transaction. We now know that once Kabier broke up with the German guy, Jason swooped in and made her his girlfriend, and that can be confirmed as during that December 2017 call with Bleakley, she specifically mentions they've been together for 5 years at that point. The real kicker here is that Jasonafex himself was born July 3rd, 1991, meaning that Jason at the age of 20 met Kabier at 15 years old, animated an NSFW piece between her and her old lover, turned 21, then when they broke up got with her and started to get NSFW art with her, including having her voice act as a minor in an animation among the other countless NSFW art pieces that you've seen. So not only did Jasonafex use Kabier and her art skills to further himself in the furry fandom, he also preyed on and groomed her when he was 21 and she was 15. He used her just like he used other people's artwork to further his own brand, and just like how he tries to use everyone around him to keep doing so. Now as far as when exactly they got together, that's hard to pinpoint, but another DeviantArt archive dated January 27, 2013 shows that she was in a close relationship by that point alongside him being a reference in her price sheet, so it's safe to assume she's become very comfortable with him at this point. People on Furfinity seem to have been aware of this by the time 2018 was wrapping up, as there would be these now deleted posts of people calling him names and such on his Furfinity account, and even pull up age of consent stuff during his rage posting against Sonic Fox in 2018 despite the bitter irony. During his Kiwi Farms escapade, he would avoid answering anything having to do with Kabier and his age because he always does that whenever people have a point against him. And months later, even more people on Furfinity were aware of this as he tried to say that one of his haters was a hypocrite because they lived in the Netherlands. Kabier would see all this floating around and say that she wasn't groomed and for people to fuck off despite the evidence saying otherwise, and then later on also pulled up age of consent laws in Canada to try and defend her and her lover in what can only be described as ignorance or denial. Jason would make a very ironic retweet about other furries doing exactly what he did to Kabier, and when his personal website launched, people already trolled him by leaving such a comment before it was deleted. At this point, it's well known that both he and Kabier are complete manipulative assholes, and now Jason is also a manipulative child groomer as well. A lot of those art pieces including Kabier as a minor and the one animation including her voice have been deleted off of Furfinity, but as you've seen, it ain't hard to find the past Jason is so desperate to keep secret, because he knows he can't defend none of this. While a lot can be said about the both of them, seeing that Jason's pattern of using people for his own personal gain goes as far as using children is none too surprising, and now a lot more people are about to become aware of this dude and what he's been doing. There would be a period of silence from these two for a good while, as other than the expected rambling and arguments, nothing new was going on. That is until November 19th, 2022 rolled around, as some rumors start to spread of a furry named PeaceWolf ditching her husband Foxglove, with the man himself even alluding to so on social media. People noticed just 6 days prior, Kabier uploaded an art piece with Jason and PeaceWolf involved with a peculiar caption, and they would also notice both her and PeaceWolf's bios had a very interesting thing going on with the heart and wolf emojis, implying something more was going on here. People will then find PeaceWolf's Facebook account, in which the banner shows all three of them happily hanging around together, and if it wasn't clear already, it was certain by now. Jason and Kabier roped this woman away from her family, and all three of them are now in some sort of polyamorous relationship. Some leaked messages from Foxglove show that he wasn't aware of any of this about to go down, but they must have gotten to her head when supplying her with drugs, as she just up and left one day with a drawing on a whiteboard of their three characters together. Jason would make reference to her on his Gab social media account, and someone would screenshot that PeaceWolf was now closer with them in their Discord server with a brand new role that was given to her. PeaceWolf herself would eventually make reference to this situation on November 27th, saying some cryptic shit about being caged in relationships not turning good and whatever to sound cool and ominous. She would then say she was cheated on but provides no proof, and then says she found solace in these two lovely people that we've come to know throughout this video. Jason would go on to make a bunch of tweets about love and taking a chance and some more stuff that nobody really cares about outside the naive Twitter users who think they're good people somehow. A news article would even come out about this, showing that PeaceWolf and Foxglove also happen to be the creators of the AWOO Association and created the Free For All convention, one that included attendees such as a furry dressed up as a straight up Nazi, so we kinda get an idea of the type of people that were allowed at this event. It came out that Foxglove apparently did cheat on her, and that they reconciled and adopted a 17-year-old afterwards, meaning that PeaceWolf not only left her husband but also her child. A picture would come out of the three of them hanging around this past winter. Jason would go to some animal zoo and help out a bit for the day, and he would finally meet his idol Jordan Peterson after years of hyping up his work to his fans. It's also worth pointing out that there's a Rumble channel called Expose AWOO that goes into the specifics involving the drama surrounding the Free For All convention and the owner's relationship. I gave it a listen and it really ain't important for this video as it's stuff we already know, but if you want to dig more into that situation, feel free to. Over 5 years after getting himself and his work banned on E621, it would be lifted on May 13th, 2023, with Jason going on to say that everything is all good between him and the admins now. However, just 9 days later, he and Kabier would get banned on Furfinity on May 22nd for not being a good match for the community, whatever that means. He would complain a bit on Twitter and show that he was also banned on their Twitter account too, meaning it's not just the both of them catching some strays from a bot. He would then upload an old recording from years ago for his defunct podcast where he spoke to the owner of the site Dragoneer. It's not really anything interesting at all. I don't exactly know why Jason posted it other than to annoy Dragoneer by posting something he asked not to. He kinda hints at that when chatting in the live feed too, and PeaceWolf decides to join in for a bit, but unless there's some like super niche reference to something bad, it's just a waste of time. Jason would then go on this rant about cancel culture and how it never works unless you yourself stop making content and ramble on some more. Basically a sort of, he won't stop doing stuff until it's not worth his time or he's dead kind of attitude. He'd also go on about his podcast ads being pulled from Furfinity because it was called the Cuck Shack, but it's so pointless and boring it's not worth going into any extreme detail about. PeaceWolf would actually update people about the situation with their former lover on June 16, 2023, now saying that Foxglove was grooming her since she was 17 years old and that he's a narcissist who wanted to make her the perfect wife in his eyes off some character he made in his head named Lily. She says things broke off after she found out he was apparently cheating on her with another staff member, roommate at the Free For All convention, and planned to meet up with her there and was hurt by this and started hanging around Jasonafex and Kabier more. She then says that they helped her out during this time and whatnot, alongside details nobody really cares about as her relationship faltered with Fox, with things eventually ending up with PeaceWolf fucking Jason and Kabier as Fox is subjected to being a cuckold in this open marriage of sorts, going as far to mention his father was in prison for charges against minors for no other reason I can think of other than to try and poison the well and make Fox look bad. Some more stuff about the cuck situation and that Fox apparently started to spew a false narrative against the three of them would be spoken about. And she would then go on to confirm that they did indeed foster a child together alongside claims of Fox sending death threats and trying to hack into her Twitch account, and apparently even stealing her car on her birthday too in some sort of revenge plot. She would say that other people have recordings of him harassing them as well, and PeaceWolf would end things off saying that Jason and Kabier are truly good people to her for being nice or whatever, and making fun of Fox still because she doesn't like him no more. I'm gonna keep it real. It's hard to care about this because there's basically no evidence to almost everything going around. And at that, it's already hard to take this situation seriously when everybody knows what Jason and Kabier are capable of, so it comes off as yet just another entry into this entire saga. I do like how PeaceWolf brings up the fact Jason and Kabier helped her make her Twitch stream look nice, because let's be real, nobody's gonna give a fuck about her or her internet career endeavors after affiliating herself with a child groomer, but hey, delusion is one hell of a drug. This situation is so childish and pointless, so unless some actual evidence comes out, not hearsay from this groomer cult or other people, I'm just gonna move ahead and say everyone is stupid. On one hand, it's entertaining to see PeaceWolf on her own accord willingly choose to be in a relationship with these people, and on the other it's sad, but it is what it is at this point, so whatever. Jasonafex is clearly not a good person. He groomed Kabier into becoming his personal artist since she was 15 years old, used her to voice act in NSFW art as a minor, use other people's work to further his own brand, you kinda get the point already. The guy's as sleazy as people can get, and throughout this whole video you can get a timeline to understand all that better. He's just a sneaky little guy whose infamy has only stayed within niche furry groups and even more niche internet circles, because while he rings the bells of most locales we cover on the channel, he's managed to stay within those confines somehow. You even saw how he got someone to abandon their family, and while most of the responsibility is on PeaceWolf for doing so, he and Kabier's influence clearly had something to do with it. He's even gone on to make cut jokes when he literally groomed a kid. The lack of self-awareness is so strong with this dude that it's not even funny anymore, it's just sad. Speaking of Kabier, she seems to got her own issues going on as well. You heard in that call just how insufferable she is to deal with, as that was some of the worst verbal harassment I've listened to in a good while. She's even had her bouts of straight up racism against Sonic Fox as well, showing she can one up her lover in her own devious ways if she needs to. With that being said, I can't help but feel some sort of pity for her, as that call was from 5.5 years ago and it's within reality she's most likely gotten control of herself since then. She's acknowledged the grooming accusations and said she wasn't groomed, yet it sounds like either ignorance or denial coming from her. We've pieced it all together. A 21-year-old got with a 15-year-old because her art skills were good, and anybody on the outside can see that Jason used her from the very day they met. Maybe they do truly love each other now and she's simply not able to grasp the idea that he groomed her, but then that begs the question, why bring in a third party into their relationship? PeaceWolf herself is pretty new to the entire situation, and while not much can be said, the fact she's continued to profuse her love for Jason and Kabier only shows how far gone she is, but she chose to go down this path on her own accord, so I'm just here to relay the message and any further shenanigans she decides to get herself into with those two. I also noticed throughout this investigation that furries seem to be either willfully ignorant or really stupid, because there are still people trying to defend these three in what can only be described as some sort of mental issue. Maybe it's just because Jason and Kabier used to be mega popular and they just want to climb that social ladder, but it's something I noticed and couldn't get out of my head when making this video. It's very clear that there's something more going on here, and I can't wait to see what comes of this, because the story of Jasonafex is far from over. There's such a rich internet history revolving around this man and the people he surrounds himself with, and I'm willing to bet there's a lot more behind the scenes stuff that hasn't been unearthed yet for one reason or another. In the meantime, all we can do is just sit back and wait to see what the future holds for us, because he's only just starting to hit mainstream internet circles, and if you ask me, that'll lead to some interesting stuff leaking its way out one way or another.